What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Just letting you know with this little bit at the start that we now have a Patreon. Sub up to that and you can get all these episodes early and ad-free, so you won't even see this bit at the start. You get them a few days before the main episodes drop out. We've got some great guests coming up. We've got some studio episodes. We've got some Zoom episodes with some fantastic rappers talking about the films they love and the films that influenced them. We got a lot going on there. Plus, you get some bonus content like film reviews, all that kind of thing. I don't need to explain this to you. You know what a Patreon is. But yeah, it's patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. So check that out. Peace. Yes, people. What's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Safe, how are we? Yes, Kinell himself. Always had a buzz of every rhyme I wrote and everybody want to know me like the Wi-Fi code. Yeah, we're back with another one. The weekly episodes keep on coming. Flipping, I'm not sure when this one drops because I've got a bunch in the crate at the minute, but I'm going to figure it out. But yeah, things to promote. Catch me and Danny Jack and me and Gas Bluff out on YouTube now on Don't Flop. And by the time this drops, I should have me versus Melody available on the Iron Barge YouTube. So go and watch them because I need the numbers. Please help me. Other than that, follow me on the Twitch, twitch.tv/Kinell. Yo, I'm playing horror games and making a dickhead out of myself. Texas Chainsaw Massacre game should be on by now, so should be out by the time this episode's dropped. So I'm probably going to be making a dickhead out of myself there. Right. Now, as a movie podcast that sometimes diverges way too much into battle rap on account of the fact that people involved with battle rap are genuinely my people. But so that's who I tend to get on as guests. But, you know, there's been a few people that I haven't had on yet that I really should have got on And here's one of them right now, Mr. Liam Body Bagnall. How are we?
All right, mate. I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, mate. What should we call it? Flipping for a movie-based podcast that has a load of battle rap themed guests. It's been absolutely egregious that I haven't managed to get you on yet. But the time zones ain't really been popping. But you are in European time as we speak. After a lot of traveling, how was that? How was your journey?
Oh, mate, 25 hours of traveling from Australia to England via Singapore. And then I've done another 12 hours of traveling today, going from my mum's house in Kent over to Ile de Ré in France for a 70th birthday. But yeah, it's been good. A lot of traveling, too much traveling.
Jesus, flipping hell, man! That could kill your average cigarette smoker, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, it's lucky I don't smoke fags anymore. Otherwise, I probably would have found it a bit too difficult. But yeah, it's not too bad. Just the worst thing's being too tall for planes. And I know that sounds like a gripe that only tall, privileged people can say. But being 6'3" and stuck in the middle seat the whole way for 25 hours is a bit of a piss take.
Oh yeah, man, flipping what should we call it? When you can't get your legs even a bit wide, man, it's not fucking on.
No. You can't man spread on an airplane. It's been frowned upon for a while, but it's not the time or the place to start man spreading.
Yeah, no, and like the flipping, a lot of the seats don't allow for it, and all like.
No, not all. I think like I did the mistake last year. So I did a couple of jobs in a row, and I did premium economy on the first one, did business on the second one, Then on the third one, went back to economy. And it is true what they say. Once you've done business, obviously I'd never pay for that, but because I got it through work, it kind of makes economy even worse, and you really realise how badly you're being fucked. But yeah, that's it. Again, it's a privileged gripe to have.
Yeah, man, for real. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you know, I mean, like how many more people do they, what should we call it, get in economy? Like, are the seats deliberately uncomfortable? Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. But also, I think they're hoping that people will never like transcend out of it, and they'll keep you in the cattle class just so that you'll never know. But it is much worse. I mean, it's even funny. Like when you go into even premium economy, suddenly they give you a little glass bottle of balsamic vinegar with your food, and you get a knife and fork, which you can't be trusted with if you're in economy apparently, because they're all
Yeah.
savages who want to stab people. So you just get some little wooden spork.
Yeah, man, and that I'm pretty sure that was the case even before 9/11. Like,
Yeah.
so your fucking little wooden sporks didn't help you there, did you? You little bellends. Fucking give us the cutlery.
100%. If you armed everyone in economy with proper knives and forks, maybe 9/11 wouldn't have happened.
Yeah,
That's my hot take. Name the episode that. We'll get loads of views.
I never get views anyway because what should we call it? I start off talking about a slasher from the 80s and end up talking about Epstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. What we should mention, fucking before we get into the Sinister Cinema related things, is when by the time this episode goes out, you will be up in Edinburgh at the Fringe. You want to let me know what's popping there?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, it's crazy. With me, like, I feel incredibly lucky that we're doing this. But me, Shuffle, Kruger, Bleeze, Doc Brown are taking our show. Sounds like a rhyming panel show that we created on Zoom over the pandemic to Fringe. In literally 1 week, no, 8 days from today, we'll be doing our first show, and we're doing 5 nights in a row at the biggest comedy expo in the world, which is fucking trippy to say. If you told me 2 or 3 years ago I'd be doing stand-up comedy with my mates at Edinburgh Fringe, I don't think I would have believed you. But yeah, it's the next stage in our hopes to try and get the show onto TV.
Yeah,
we've got like a lot of big comedians jumping in, and it's going to be a bit of a movie. I've got quite a lot of funny things planned, and we're going to see how it goes. But it's pretty daunting.
Yeah, you've got Doc Brown sort of like holding things down on the industry side, that like, innit?
Yeah, so I think we've always had good relationships with Doc Brown. I think like Doc and Freddie's brother Angus actually became best mates when they both worked in children's outreach programs. And Angus brought Doc to battle rap back in the day, and then since then, me and Doc have had quite a good relationship. I made a documentary about him for Uni Lads. We've been chatting. And we'd got him on the Zoom version of the show a couple of times. And it's when we got him to do the live show, our first live show that we did before I went to Australia. He was like, guys, I actually think this is, like, I think this is a thing. Like, I think this could be massive on TV. And actually seeing like 200 people in the audience and everyone loving it, he was just like, look, I'd like my company to come on. I wanted us to produce this and hopefully take it to TV. And with it, I've got a lot of like skills and stuff I can add, and it's honestly been amazing working alongside him, producing and directing the show. But he's just adding so much to it, and the fact, like the last show that we did in Soho House with Ian Sterling, he didn't tell us, but afterwards he did. And the executive producer of The Office, Ricky Gervais's manager, Stephen Merchant's manager, was in the audience watching and giving us feedback, and that was. I mean, I'm glad he didn't tell us beforehand.
Yeah, fucking, you don't want something that's going to get in the way of telling a lot of dick jokes before you.
No. It's like when I did. I wrote an idea for Ice Cube's Fist Fight movie, and we got Mark Grist and Harry Baker to do a battle as maths versus science or something like that. And the production company were like, "How about we just get Ice Cube to walk in mid battle?" And I was just like, "I just don't think that's what people want. They're like, it'd be amazing, but they'll throw the guys off their material. How are they going to tell dick jokes when Ice Cube walks in?"
This is it. Fucking, you do need to focus on the dick jokes. Most
you
important
do.
part of anything.
You do.
Yeah, man. Fucking yeah. So that's so what's we call it? People can check that out at Edinburgh Fringe. You been Fringe before?
Yeah, funnily enough, last time I went to Fringe, I was actually filming Fringe, and it was when I was working writing for comedians and building promo for comedians, and like maybe 4 years ago, I went there to film and work on writing, and this time I'm going to perform, which is a trip.
Fucking, I like the last weekend of Fringe when everyone's like in a really bad emotional state. Everyone's like, what should we call it? The tightest they will ever be as a performer, having performed like a full show every day for fucking an hour straight for a month. So they're the tightest they'll ever be as a performer, but they're gonna break because they just spent £10,000 on performing to 6 fucking people.
Do you know? I heard a stat that most comedians go into 20 grand of debt doing Fringe.
I fucking like. I think there's a bit of fucking fudging going on there with some of the numbers because fucking, like the thing about Fringe is that fucking because of how expensive it is. Like I know like fucking a lot of like the sort of Northwest scene comedians and like through doing podcasts and shit round here and flipping what should we call it? It's a lot of people that are going on about the debt they got into. They really got a substantial grant from the bank of mum and dad to do it, which is sort of why like flipping what you call it, the more middle class flipping comedians tend to like filter to the top, and like fucking like most comedy on telly is bullshit for that reason because the Edinburgh Fringe is sort of the main pipeline for it, and it's very much pay to play. Like,
yeah, true. I didn't think about that. It's another one of those, like, much like Formula One or sports that cost a lot of money. If you don't have the cash to get into it, I mean, like, look, like if it wasn't for the fact that we all worked day jobs, and now we've got obviously helps from Doc in terms of, I mean, like, look, all the talent we're not necessarily paying for, but like venue costs, travel costs, all of that is ridiculously high. I can't imagine having to stay there for 30 days and how much that would cost. So yeah, like it makes sense that a bank of mum and dad would have to pay for it. But there's also so many people who go and do what, like can't even sell a ticket. That's got to be bank of mum and dad.
Yeah, like fucking like I hang around the free Fringe. I do. I'm on fucking Nidri Street up in Bank of Banshee Labyrinth when I go, man. I'm looking for the show like where what should we call it? There's a chance there might not be enough people to run it, and someone who spent all day flying is going to be crying outside.
Are you going this time?
I'm not this time, like, because fucking all my money's going to Fright Fest. And,
wicked!
Yeah.
Where's Fright Fest? Is that in America?
No, it's what should we call it? It's a big horror festival in fucking Leicester Square. They normally do it. They do it at the Cineworld there, and they take over the Prince Charles. It's where Marlowe like had the premiere of his short film there last year.
Oh, sick, man! I'd love to go to that. Like horror movie is my favorite genre. I've never been to Fright Fest. I would love to go to Fright Fest massively.
Yeah, it's August bank holiday though. That's it. In it, like so.
Oh, so it's on 26th, 27th, 28th.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I'm back from the Fringe on the 26th. I might have to come with you to Fright Fest.
Oh yeah, get in, man. I think there's like day tickets and like individual film tickets like knocking about. Like,
quality.
Yeah, fucking.
Have you seen any good horrors this year?
Fucking, for at the minute, fucking like fucking out in front for me is Infinity Pool. The Brandon Cronenberg one, and that the Australian one. Talks to me, very fucking good.
Yeah, I went to watch that last week. Hilariously, on Infinity Pool, I went to watch the uncut version, and like cinemas in Australia are very, very different in terms of the people that go and watch the films. So I sat down, like Freddy Krueger had obviously told me to go and watch Infinity Pool because me and him used to watch really fucked up films together and like love them. And I went to watch Infinity Pool, and in the audience there was like all 80 plus year olds, and I was sitting there and I was like, I'm pretty sure They're not going to like this film.
There's going to be some on-screen ejaculation soon.
Yeah. Oh, when we got to the ejaculation scene, they were quite happy. No one like gasped. No one left. They stayed the entire film and even clapped at the end. It's different.
That's amazing. Yeah.
While I was screaming and looking away, while the kid like stabbed him to death in that first time he gets killed in the prison, they were all just like eating their popcorn, just like, oh, bloody hell, it's good, isn't it?
That's it. That's it. Like fucking. I'm really happy to hear that. And for the Australian cinemas, I like that. Like, because I've spoken to a few sort of genre filmmakers in fucking from Australia. Like, shout out Robert Woods, who was one of the first guests on the pod, and what's it call it? Can't remember who it was. I'm scrolling my letterbox on the sly here. Like, what was the name of the fucking film? Was it? Bliss of Evil.
I haven't seen it.
Which is a new one that's come out. Like, apparently, it's like very hard to get like sort of funding for genre films in Australia, even though there's like quite an appetite for homegrown like entertainment. It's because they just want to like fucking just make the Australian Film Commission just wants to make the same film again constantly. Like,
it's a different scene. I think like there's space for it to like become quite disruptive. Like, since I've been in Australia, I directed my first film that's coming out in November, and it felt like there's space to actually like make stuff. But there's just been a massive grant because I think that they got annoyed with Americans shooting stuff in Australia, but Australians not making Australian stuff. So they made a big play with Netflix that they would banish Netflix from the whole country unless they allowed funding for Australian films to be made. So I think since that's happened, there's more of a direction into more homegrown stuff, but there is a tendency, especially within the TV world, to make stuff that is quite safe, reality, formulaic. But like, I mean, like, look, Talk to Me came out and it was an absolute like, you know, it's as you said, it's probably one of the best horror films of the year. That, Beau is Afraid, and I'm trying to think if I saw anything else that was really good this year in the horror genre. Yeah, I don't know. Talk to Me was definitely a standout. I quite like Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe. I actually quite like that. Him doing an Italian accent and being a Mario Brothers is pretty good. But yeah, I think there's definitely space for Australian cinema to grow. I mean, look, Chopper's probably one of the best films of all time. That's
it is, man. Yeah. Like fucking that's it. I just have heard these like horror stories about like getting funding from the AFC, like apparently the year that fucking that film Australia by fucking Strictly Ballroom guy fucking Romeo and Juliet guy, that guy, when he did that film Australia, like flipping the AFC gave him the budget for the year.
Yeah, but I imagine. I mean, he's the big shining star, right, Baz Luhrmann? But yeah, I can imagine. We tried to get a bit of funding from Screen Australia for the film that I just did, but I don't think we heard anything back. So maybe your theory is 100% right. Maybe Baz Luhrmann took it all for Elvis.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But like, what I hear as a result is that like fucking. A lot of Australian like fucking like filmmakers. If you want to be a filmmaker in Australia, flipping like most of them are like doing like commercials and shit to like sort of fun things. It's got to be proper indie, like fucking get the money yourself kind of thing. But it's producing great stuff. So, and like what's it called? Talk to Me, like it's the Raka guys that are like YouTube guys, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, what did you? When did you see Talk to Me?
A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, what was your thoughts on it? I'd love to. Like, for me, it was up there with like It Follows in terms of like original, interesting, grainy. I love the like hip hop back in, and it wasn't a completely original story, but it was fucking really well done.
Yeah, I thought like what the thing that set it apart as a film was like the characters really, and like fucking like because it's based around this kind of like teen audience, and it made the characters very fucking real. Bumping Australian hip hop, like you say, bumping a bit of fucking like drill with Aussie accents, and fucking like that is what fucking kids today would do if they had the power to like visit the underworld. They'd put it on fucking TikTok and do it at parties for a laugh.
It's funny, the Aussie hip hop scene is largely just drill,
Yeah. Fucking, that's mad, isn't it? Like, fucking, because, like, fucking, I say that, I only know fucking 360 and that, and fucking, if they don't battle, I've never heard of him, and, like, drill hasn't really produced much in the way of battlers yet. I mean, like, it's a bit coming through in London, but as a result of which, like, fucking, I've probably got, like, quite an antiquated idea of what Australian hip-hop is.
Yeah, I guess I was probably the same because I heard a lot of like Hilltop Hoods, which are Adelaide, 360, which is Melbourne, Seth Century, Melbourne, like Bliss and Esso, Melbourne, and like actually Sydney scene doesn't. Sydney actually as a place doesn't really have a hip hop scene. It doesn't exist. But if you go out into the like outside of the city to like some of the areas around there, you'd actually find that it's mostly like like indigenous Tongan different cultures that have been influenced by grime and have kind of got their own version of drill. But yeah, it's just a different scene. But it's weird going from a place like London where hip hop is the main musical language to Sydney where hip hop isn't even a thing. It's very strange.
Mad.
Yeah, it's mental, man.
I can't imagine that on like like flipping like anywhere in the world. I've never really visited somewhere where I can't find some hip hop. If it's fucking Bratislava, if it's fucking Osaka, if it's I've always like been able to find some hip hop, and I found some like cool local stuff, and like fucking like I've checked a bit of Australian grime, like what should we call it, like Wombat. I really like. But I don't know if I don't know if like the grime's more of an outlier thing. So hearing there's an actual bit of a drill scene is quite interesting.
Yeah, I need to investigate it a bit more. I think it's like out on the suburbs towards like Harris Park. But so I keep complaining that there's not a hip hop scene to people. But then like saying that, I went to see Loyal Kana 2 weeks ago, and he sold out like a venue in the middle of Sydney 2 nights in a row. And I was surprised at how young the audience were, because before then I was just going to watch like Charlie Tuna and like a bunch of old heads, and everyone was kind of my age, if not older, proper like old school backpacker hip hop heads. And it was a bit different. Do you mind if I quickly go pour another glass of wine?
Yeah, go and do your thing, mate.
Cool.
Pocket, like, what's it called? I just put an edit there. I'm going to say, like, for anyone who does podcasts that's listening to this, I'm using the new Streamlabs podcast editor, and it's really fucking easy. I love it. Fucking, you just delete a fucking text out of a transcription. So I think I've got an affiliate link. So if you make a podcast, fucking hit that and get that. It'll make your shit easier, and I'll give you a bit of a discount. Safe. But anyway, one thing we breezed past quite quickly is you've got your first film coming out. Let us know a bit about
that. Yeah. Oh, can I talk about it? I'm pretty sure I can talk about it. It's so when I first moved to Australia, it's quite funny that so I started working for my first time in advertising. I'd never worked in advertising before, although I guess you can probably say Unilad was advertising. It just wasn't working within an agency. It was coming up with ideas for like films and TV within that. But when I moved over to agency, I went in ready for my first day in the job. As everyone knows, it's like quite an intimidating thing doing your first day in any job, especially when you're in another country. And I got in on January 3rd, and I didn't know that everyone in Australia takes the entirety of January off. So it was just me and like 2 other people, and I was like, it's pretty quiet in here, isn't it? And I didn't know what to do with my time to really get like into it. So I started looking at stuff that was going on, and there's this amazing guy, amazing creative team in Melbourne called Kian and Meeks, who are like young bucks in the office down in Melbourne. And and that they basically told me that they had this idea about a PR activation where there was this thing called the World Transplant Games, and they wanted to just do this PR thing where if someone won a medal, so what the World Transplant Games is, it's this crazy event that is like the Olympics that no one knows about, and as soon as you hear about it, you're like, what? But it's the World Transplant Games is an Olympics just for people that have organ transplant. And they had an idea that just if someone won, they could split the medal with a donor. And it was just meant to be a big newspaper moment, a photograph. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, we could make a film out of this. This is like a documentary. So I went into casting, which is just interviewing a bunch of real people. Found these 8 different people from around the world who were going to compete in the games, and managed to win them on the idea that if they won a medal, they could split it with their donor or donor family. And through this, I found all these amazing stories. I found this Rohingyan refugee who like has this most amazing story. Moved over to Australia from like a refugee camp when he was younger. He was born with kidney failure, and like he was, because he lived in a refugee camp, he was just given like Panadol all the time, which actually makes your kidneys worse. Like by the time he got to Australia, one of his kidneys was dead, the other one was at like 60%. Went through all this like traumatic stuff. Found this amazing person, found like a husband and wife who's what the wife had given the husband one of her kidneys, all these amazing people. But then I spent 12 days with them, did all these like crazy interviews, followed it to the end, and we're now in the final phases of like the edit. It's going out on November 19th on Channel 10 in Australia. It's then going out on Paramount Plus globally, and then it should be going out on Channel 5 in the UK. But yeah, I've just cut a trailer. I'll send you the trailer after we do this podcast. But yeah, really proud of it. It feels like a film that hopefully will save some lives. The whole point of it, really, from an advertising perspective, is people sign up to the organ donor register. But like for me, probably the more important thing that I learned is that it's more about people just saying what they would like to happen to their organs if something bad happened to them. Because even if you're on the donor register, at the point that, say, I die, the next of kin get asked, and if they don't know what the rights would be, 54% of people say no.
Jeez. And like there's like I think there's like for the first time ever there's kind of like an online movement against fucking organ donation, in it, and it's conspiracy nutters and that, like, and fucking what should we call it, those people that are like really full-time anti-trans are fucking that's fucking insane. Like,
well, it's funny you say that, because like so obviously I've been deep in the organ transplant world, and apparently in America there's a big thing. So imagine, like, you know, you've been told you got 2 weeks to live, and then they call you and say, look, we've got an organ, you need to get down there now. There's a trend of people in America going down to the hospital and finding out that their donor was not of the same sex, and being like, no, and like turning it down because they were like, oh, I'm worried it's going to make me more feminine.
it sounds nuts, but people are crazy now, man. Fucking like,
yeah, they are.
COVID sent the world nuts. Like, it got a load of people into conspiracies that weren't into conspiracies before. Old school conspiracy heads like me, we've been into it for ages, and like, there's a bullshit detector that comes with it. But like, with COVID happening immediately after fucking like the Epstein death, like, fucking all that happening at the same time just blew people's minds, and they haven't been able to get it back. Like, QAnon was popping like mainstream for a while, like, and like fucking you know, a lot of people were making money off like anti-vaccine stuff, like, and there's issues. I'm not saying that fucking like some things aren't deeply fucking corrupt in them matters, but there's also like you know, like, I think the conspiracy grifter movement has become a massive thing, and because like vaccines aren't really popping like that anymore. Because if you say I'm not going to have a vaccine, people say okay now, So like there isn't that kind of thing going on. So like now they've had to like a lot of them have like moved full time into like fucking like trans people are evil and that, innit?
Yeah, do you think so? As someone who is an avid conspiracy head from day dot, do you think conspiracies have been made uncool by the amount of people that are now jumping on the hype?
Yeah. Fucking like it's the old what should we call it? It's I think Nick Mullen has a bit about it where he was saying in like one of his stand up like conspiracies like suck now because like you know fucking because we got rid of Alex Jones and now it's like these new people going well look at these charts and these numbers. And he's like fuck the charts and numbers. Go to the fucking parents of the victims of the Parkland shooting and tell them it didn't happen to their face. That's conspiracy. And like obviously that's funny, but I mean like fucking, you know, do you remember when conspiracies used to be about the government covering up aliens?
Yeah.
Now there's stuff coming up about UFOs being a thing. And like the conspiracy people now are all going, they're saying there's aliens to distract us from what's really going on with China. Hunter Biden's laptop.
It's so funny though, because like, I mean, one, we've already circled back to Epstein, and you said that would happen in this podcast, and then two, like, yeah, misinformation has become the greatest form of currency in the world because it's so easy to persuade people of one side or the other. Whereas back in the day, I remember in university when one of my mates had dropped acid and watched The Secret and went absolutely mental for a year, and I was like, oh God, come on, mate. Whereas now you don't even need to drop acid to start believing like some mental shit. It's literally just on it's on merit of like in America I always say it's not about like right or wrong, it's red or blue. And if one of those sides say anything, you just follow it to the nth degree. And it's mental that people will just stick on it and believe it.
This is it. It's all about what our side believes like.
Yeah, what benefits me.
Yeah, and like fucking like you know most real you know oppression and fucking government corruption and that like a lot more of it comes down to fucking class, you know, than fucking like you know fucking like what one side being more corrupt than the other.
Yeah. 100% right. 100% right. It's funny time to be alive, man. But yeah, it's funny because I was speaking to a lot in the organ transplant community about why people are hesitant to join the organ donor register. And it's funny, I think in England they've actually changed stuff recently, and that might be why there's some rebuffing. And it's now not opt in, it's opt out. So everyone by right is in for organ transplants. Whereas in Australia, the problem is now it used to be on the driving license for people to you when you get your driving license you either opt in or opt out. They've now got rid of that, which has actually led to it just plummeting and no one's opting in. But yeah, it's funny. I think like again when I'm speaking to a lot of them, I think a lot of people start saying, oh, you know, if you've given away a kidney or if you've given away an organ, then essentially you won't be able to live a full life. And what was interesting about the games and the event that I went to was that you spent a lot of time with like not just people who have received organs, but people who have got organs, and you see them doing these Olympics like feats, and they're you know they can live life and do things probably better than the guy who's saying, "Oh, don't give your organs away." You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's mad like fucking like how like it's gone the opposite way in Australia like, but as I say like they changed the rule in what should we call it fucking the UK at the time when there was like more people than ever not trusting the NHS and not trusting you know medical science.
It's fun. It's funny. It's weird. Like I'd be interested to know what the prerogative of the English decision to change on organ donation. Also, do you know the most interesting thing about like organ donation? Again, you brought up like an interesting point before about like classism with a lot of this stuff. And actually like that buries so much deeper into the conversation of like organ transplant donation. Because most of the people that do it, I'm not saying all, are from white community. But like, so in Australia, there's a real problem, and it's because in Australia, Indigenous communities have a very difficult time talking about death and talking about that stuff because they have to deal with so much sorry time, as they call it, which is, in the Indigenous culture, everyone is related. So you end up in your early life going to a lot of funerals, or as they call it in their community, sorry time. So they don't actually want to talk about what happens when they pass. But if you are Indigenous, or if you are Jewish, if you are Chinese, if you are Black, if you are from a different like gene pool than Caucasian, if you need an organ transplant, it would have to be from someone who is Indigenous, is Black, is Chinese. And because in certain communities talking about death is a taboo, or giving an organ is a taboo, it's those communities that are suffering the most. So it has become almost a classist system where it's unfairly negated against people that are shamed to talk about it.
Yeah, and I suppose like a lot of those communities are like sort of, the fucking have good reason to not trust the government and to not trust the systems in place that in this case are being helpful, but historically in other matters have fucking been heavily responsible for like oppression and discrimination that they've experienced.
100%. Twice bitten, once shy.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. It's been a weird world, but it's been funny. Like, it's also like incredibly rewarding that in the same year that I've got this big film coming out, we're doing the Sounds Like Comedy show, and one arm of my life has been doing like comedy and like refining my skills and actually learning to trust myself that I am funny and I don't need to like worry about that side of stuff. But then on the other side, like really touching into like deeply emotional stuff and sharpening my skills on being able to be deep in that emotion and direct it. But also I didn't want to make something that was sad porn. So at the same time, like, it is inherently funny. I think like I wanted to make a film that deals with a situation that probably has only ever been seen before in stuff like 24 Hours in A&E, and do it in an inspirational way, but also do it with a thin veil of comedy. I think coming from like a family from North Yorkshire, a lot of Scousers around, I was always, whenever anything bad happens, you're always told to make a joke about it, or people always try to make jokes of stuff that are like hard. I wanted that to come through
It's the
in
if you
the
don't
film.
laugh, you'll cry mentality. Like,
Yeah, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Exactly that. So I think the film, when people see it, it might sound like it's traumatic, and there's definitely some sad elements to it. But like, I wanted to build in that like comedy factor, same way that Taika Waititi did with Jojo Rabbit, and I know that was basically remaking La Bella Vita, but it's like using comedy to make hard points hit harder, and I think you'll see that in this film. But it's been a funny dichotomy doing the two.
yeah. I mean, like, the logical conclusion is ultimately like between Sounds Like and this, you've ultimately got to make a film about dick transplants.
Exactly that. I'm glad you noticed. It's actually annoying that you've broken the news, because that's, I'm currently deep in the writing process. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe we should write that film together.
Yeah, man. I'm on it, man. Fucking and I think it's the other thing that always comes up on Epstein and dicks. Epstein, dicks, conspiracies, and occasionally we talk about a film. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was talking to my dad because we were driving the whole way here, and I was like, "Oh, it's a film podcast. I probably should think about what my 5 favorite films are.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I going to do?" But I'm glad to know that we're just talking about Epstein, dicks, and transplants. Actually,
Yeah, yeah, we'll keep it a bit film related. Like,
yeah.
is there anything you've seen that you've been feeling lately?
Oh, it's funny. I've actually been going to the films, like, so in Australia. Look, let me paint you an interesting picture of my life in Australia. In Sydney, what I found out about Sydney when I got there, or just after I moved, is it's the third hardest city in the entire world to make friends. So I actually don't have any friends in Sydney. So most of the time, what I go and do is I go to the cinema and watch films. So I think I've probably got the breadth of knowledge of knowing everything from an art house perspective to like all the major releases. I've gone to see stuff I never thought I'd go and watch. Watched Mission Impossible, terrible. Went to watch Barbie, pretty good. Oppenheimer, absolutely loved. I went to the short films Oscars nominations showing at this really cool cinema called Golden Age, which is a bit like Prince Charles. Loved everything on that. But the film that really stood out to me, and it's got a classic bad ending Ari Aster style, was Beau is Afraid.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Like the ending, I think was Struggle City, but I love the idea of telling the hero's journey into this whole different story arc. And I was just captivated from start to finish, especially when he's in the like Munchausen house with the crazy like army guy with PTSD and everything. But yeah, that really stood out to me. That's been my favorite film this year. Triangles of Sadness, absolutely loved. Was there anything else? Talk to Me. Well, and probably Infinity Pool, like you said.
Yeah. Big fan of Brandon Cronenberg. Like fucking, he's the guy for me at the minute. Like whatever he puts out, I'm there day one.
They're good, man. I really like. I didn't love. What was the last one? Faces of, or Tales of the Future. Something of the future.
See, that was his dad. Crimes of the Future. That was that was old man David Cronenberg.
Oh, okay. So he did Enforcer. What was the one with the melted face?
Possessor.
Enforcer. Possessor was great. I thought he did Crimes of the Future, which I didn't love. But I didn't know that was his dad that did it. Yeah, I really, really liked Infinity Pool. Although Freddie might have overhyped it. Did you go and watch Titane?
Yeah, flipping big fan of Titane.
The best thing about Titane, I went to watch it with Freddie, and we went to watch it at Dendy in Hoxton, and some guys came into the film after the car sex scene, and they missed that bit, and at the end, their confusion.
Yeah, that's a really key bit to miss.
Yeah, they were absolutely baffled by the film. They were just like, sorry, why? Afterwards, they're like, excuse me, sorry, why was she leaking oil?
But yeah, I'm trying to flipping like envision like just being able to understand that film without that part.
Yeah.
You just think it's a serial killer film, like up until then.
Yeah, do you know what the film that it's most similar to, and I didn't clock this until I was talking to someone about it recently, is Dusk Till Dawn.
That's an interesting comparison. I've not heard that.
Because like halfway through the film completely changes, right? And it's not really a serial killer film. It's about a guy that's like wanting to, like, you know, he knows his kid's dead and he's wanting to believe this person is, much like The Imposter. But the film just completely switches from quite an American Psycho slash like Jack, the house that Jack built, and then it just suddenly completely switches down the middle into this quite like sad and empathetic film about this roid-haired fireman trying to deal with like an LGBTQIA plus new daughter's son that he doesn't quite understand.
Speaking of like misplay, did you see Orphan First Kill last year?
Yeah.
I fucking enjoyed that, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I went into it not thinking it would be that good, and actually really, really liked it. There's been some good ones actually on Netflix. Now there's Somebody in Your House and Classic Horror Story were both pretty good last year as well. The Italian ones.
Last year was an amazing year for horror films. Like what should we call it? Like fucking, and Fright Fest was the big trigger for a lot of it, and all like loads of flipping huge films that came out like were at Fright Fest last year. It was one of those, like, normally, like, with a film fest, it's a bit mixed, but there were so many, like, absolute bangers. Like, I think Terrifier 2, Barbarian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like a lot of these, like, premiered there. But, like, my favourite film of last year altogether, like, just didn't end up getting a wide release, but apparently it's dropping on Now TV and Sky, fucking in a couple of weeks. It's a film on the 20th, I think it's, according to Brad Hanson. Cheers, film called Next Exit.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's directed by like Marley Elfman, who's Danny Elfman's I think niece, and like I didn't know that going in. Like if I had known it, I'm not sure I'd have been so keen to see it. Like I'd have thought, nepo baby, only got it because of that. But I found out after, and it flipping like it blew me away. It's got Rahul Kohli in it. You know, London guy who's fucking. He was in like Midnight Mass, does lots of Mike Flanagan stuff. It's like him and what we call it, this girl. Are like taking. They're like about to be traveling across country to take part in this experiment. Opening of the film is that someone has like managed to prove that ghosts are definitely real. Like that's the opening. The opening's like a news report. Like we proved it. Here's the footage. The afterlife and ghosts in it are real.
Oh, sick.
And like fucking like it shows this ghost communicating with his son. So it's like obviously okay, we know this is possible. So now we need to figure out how so people will be able to see their loved ones again.
Yeah.
And what you call it? Obviously Tony's popped up on camera, like so if anyone's watching this on YouTube. But yeah, flipping the so obviously they've got to run some experiments, which means some people have got to die. So they can see how it works. And like these are two people that have got like various things going on in their lives, and you know, fucking they're like volunteering for this experiment. And like that's like the first 5 minutes of the fucking film.
Oh, it sounds quality.
Yeah, and they've got a car share across the country to California to die, but for a really important cause.
Oh, that sounds quality. Is it on I wish I could write it down if it wasn't on my phone. Next Exit.
Yeah. But
I'll have to see if they've got it on Apple TV or something.
Yeah, flipping it. I know you can rent it because that's the thing. It like hasn't been on a streaming service, like, and it didn't get a cinema release, like, apart from a very limited release in America.
I'll have to look. This sounds up my street. Sounds really good.
Yeah, and fucking Rahul Kohli's great in it, like, and like there's some bits that get you right in the fucking feels, and like that. That's why I was so impressed with it because, like, in the wrong hands, it could become like some proper schmaltzy nonsense in some places. But like just from the performance of the actors and like how well it's put together, it's an incredible piece of work. But yeah, it's I know you can rent it on VOD. But what's it called? It's coming to Now TV and Sky Cinema. Next week on the 20th. So yeah. Hey, hope you're glitching out a bit there, G.
Sorry, is it still glitching out?
No, I can hear you just fine, man.
Oh, sorry, man.
Next exit. Like, I saw that at Fright Fest, and everyone was outside afterwards. Like, and this is a bunch of people who've like paid to watch horror films for 5 days, and they want to see stuff. But everyone was like fucking like proper in their feels outside, like. It fucking got everyone.
Did people really like it? In their feels, as in like people were emotional about it, or
yeah, fucking like. But it's a very entertaining film and all, like. But yeah,
I'll have to check it out. What did you think? And I don't want to like maybe. What do you think about this statement? Skinker was massively overrated and wasn't very good.
It's not for me, man. It's not for me at all.
Yeah,
like,
shite.
Like there's this whole kind of like sort of like a movement of these like kind of like lo-fi things at the minute, like, and it's not for me. I think it's for fucking TikTok kids and that, and like people who are really online in Tumblr, like, and like that. The first one I saw was like We're All Going to the World's Fair, which I thought was all right.
Oh yeah.
And then there was Skinamarink, and like you've got the Outwaters, and it's this whole subgenre, and it's just not for me.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Outwaters was terrible as well.
Yeah.
I'm probably same as you. Like, I outwardly look for what are meant to be the best horrors. I love a bad horror.
Yeah.
I love all horror films. My favorite type of like horror film generally are found footage horror movies.
Mm.
But like Skinkamarink was just like on the cusp of just trying to be so art house that it was just completely unwatchable. Like I didn't,
I think
all
it's
these
kind
like
of.
off camera shots of walls. Sorry.
I think it's kind of like blown up because of it's got a very like young audience, like TikTok people. I think this might be like their first like their first discovery of like weirdness. The first weird films you get into are like big
Yeah.
when you've generally like only seen like mainstream stuff and when you're very young. Like these kids are probably grown up on like the most generic of the generic with all the Marvel shit that's about these days. And then you discover Skinnamarink, that's probably like, this is my shit.
It's funny because for us
Like,
it's probably
like going to be like I think like in 10 years there's going to be like a lot of people involved, like in like for fucking like either like actually making films or like what should we call it, like just being YouTubers and like making content about films and stuff. They're going to say like, yeah, Skinnamarink was the one for me.
Yeah.
Like
it's funny. I think people are pretending to like it, whereas when we were younger, it was probably like Naked Lunch, right?
Yeah, fucking right. Yeah, I got the 4K right here, right behind me in case I need it.
Absolute classic, man. Absolutely love that. I don't know. I was more into like Gaspar Noé, and I don't know. I think one of the first films I was allowed to watch when I was 6 was Alien. And I think since I watched Alien, my mum was horrified actually that I watched. She's horrified about it, but my mum was horrified that at 6 I watched Alien. And I think I probably watched Exorcist at probably about 8. But even then, I thought like Exorcist was overhyped. The Skinnamarink, oh,
yeah,
absolute shite.
Yeah. I think like one thing, like I think we spoke about this before, like is like fucking like when we didn't have like internet and that, like one of the biggest. I want to do a full episode that I'd quite like to get you on, but there's other people I need on, so it might have to be a full on roundtable discussion. Definitely need fucking Amber, formerly Hornblood Fire, now Blonde Quaidan. I know the homie Stowaway wants to be on. Talking about fucking the Tartan Asia Extreme series.
Oh, okay. So if we want to talk about the film that scared me the most ever, Tartan Asia Extreme Audition.
Yes.
I've had nightmares about Audition for years after that film. They're like, that whole film was just so traumatic. But I think I probably found, not that we need to go too deep into Tartan Asia Extreme now, but I think like it was like a natural progression. I told someone once, or like, when I got the ring, sorry, I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes like crazy here. When I saw the ring, it came with a health warning. Do you remember DVDs? This will be something for the TikTok generation. Used to have bonus features on the DVD.
Yeah.
And on the Tartan Asia Extreme version of the ring, one of the bonus features was you could watch the tape. That if you watch, you'll die in 7 days. And before you watch it, you have to agree to like an NDA health agreement that if anything bad happens to you mentally, physically, after watching the film, then the director and the producers and the creators of the film can't be held responsible.
Yeah.
And I remember probably being about 12, 13, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch it. I'm scared. And then one day I had like 3 people over, and I was like, want to watch the behind the scenes features. And we watched it. And the moment after the film finished, someone called me.
And
shit.
you had ringtones on in them days.
I had a monophonic ringtone back in them days.
And fucking that, then of course you've got things like one missed call and phone. Because I've started I've started collecting these again, like because they're all pretty.
The eye is really good.
Yeah. fucking
The Eye is good. Shutter's really good.
yeah, fucking. I've got Dark Water, Visitor Q, Audition that are me. They're my original ones that I've just never let go of. And like, there's a few in here that are fucking like I've got like I've got Blu-rays of a 4K like Battle Royale and Old Boy and fucking Tale of Two Sisters.
Yeah.
And that. But I've got like I've started missing these Tartan Asia extremes like fucking like
Yeah.
because like fucking it was like quite an interesting thing. Like the guy who like made the label, like the guy whose label it was who owned Tartan. Like the story goes that like fucking he was looking for international films and he saw The Ring and Audition on the same weekend back to back. He was just like, what the fuck is going on in Japan right now? Like, and said, I've got to make a label to bring.
Did you talking about Old Boy? Did you see the Chan-wook Park trilogy of that? Did you see Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance?
Yeah, man. Fucking what should we call it? Yeah, and Lady Vengeance. I've got the
And Lady Vengeance. Oh mate, how good is Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance?
It's so good, man. Fucking like I've enjoyed every.
Yeah, I have. It's funny he's come back now as making like romance movies, Chan-wook Park. But like that Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance just took me from. I loved Old Boy. I really loved it. I resented that they made an American version and remade it. But Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, I think, is a film that most people haven't seen that need to see, just for being like an absolutely insane. Again, that's a film that completely switches halfway through, right? Like the opening with like him on the black market trying to find like a kidney for his again an organ transplant. We've done a 360.
It all comes back.
It does. Yeah. But just like the final bits when the kids, oh yeah, I don't want to ruin the film, but like absolutely, like Tartan Asia Extreme back then were doing stuff that like no one else was trying to do, and it was pushing horror in a way that like no one was really looking at. And it's also quite funny that I guess nowadays
you could get them like if you're living in if you're not living in London and you've got cinemas around you. If you're in like a little town like Wrexham, you'd still have a HMV and they would have these things in.
Yeah,
you could buy what a DVD with that label. It'd probably be something pretty mental and pretty good.
But it feels like now there is like a complete revival, and maybe this is me being wrong, but there's been a reprise to like Korean and like Asian horror films and TV shows with stuff like Train to Busan, Squid Game, etc., where there's now like Alice in Borderlands. There's like a real like affinity and love back on that genre and that like geographical area of the world to make that.
Yeah.
Ishii the Killer though, man, what a film.
Yes. Fucking banger. But yeah, have you seen what's it called? I'll tell you what's a recent one that's pretty good and it's on Netflix is Incantation.
No, I haven't.
It's found footage and all like it's Taiwanese, but like it's found footage. It's got a bit of Noroi the Curse about it, like. But
I'll check that.
Yeah,
I saw it come up, but I wasn't sure it'd be good, so I didn't watch it.
Fucking like it was dropped on Netflix to like little or no fanfare. It just got amazing word of mouth, and in the UK, the word of mouth. It all started from the homie Amber, who I mentioned earlier, for Hornblood Fire, Blonde Quaidan, because like fucking like she's my go-to when I need information on like Asian genre cinema, and like she knew about this film's existence because she had a press release in fucking Taiwanese or what. And she'd been chasing it up for ages and fucking using Google Translate to try and get information about it. And then one day they just announced it's coming to Netflix. Went on there, no advertising. And like fucking, she told people, we were like, yeah, we'll watch this. And then the fucking word of mouth got around. And yeah, it became a big fucking like sort of cult hit like. And like, yeah.
I'll have to watch it. I'll download that. So Incantation and Next Exit are the two films that I'm leaving with this. And I need to look deeper into Epstein and dick transplants.
Yes. Fucking hell. They're harvesting the organs for adrenochrome.
Do you know my favorite film that I think, like, favorite film of all time that got me into Korean cinema, and I believe it is Tartan Asia Extreme as well, is Battle Royale.
Yeah, that's another one.
Pull it
That
up.
fucking what should we call it? That's another one that fucking like. I've got the Blu-ray, the Arrow one over there, but I've just been emotional for these like fucking DVD quality ones with the pixelated subtitles. It's just something I've just because it was so. I'm collecting them, like, you know how people started collecting like tapes again and what should we call it, like VHS. I'm starting to think there's some shit I enjoy more on DVD to the best quality. There's something that, like, certain films like Hostel and like that whole genre of things, they look better on DVD than they do in a really clean, squeaky version.
Yeah, let's bring 480p back.
Yeah, man. Fucking, like, because the thing is, like, fucking, you can blow these things up, but like a lot of these films were like edited on 480p screens, like.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny, like, maybe I do need to do the same thing. Bring back DVDs. I remember, like, I had this insane collection of DVDs that was a mixture of kung fu films and horror movies back in the day. And I went to, like, when I was moving house for university, like, I needed money, so I sold all my DVDs, and I probably had like 400, and I think I got about £45 for all of them. And it was the worst thing ever. I almost didn't want to sell them, but I need money.
Yeah. See, at the minute, DVDs aren't collector's items. You know, collectors are either like VHS or like swanky Blu-ray and 4K. So I'm thinking, like, you know, I'm missing some of mine, so I'm gonna get them back now before they start picking up any kind of value. And like fucking sometimes, like, people like fucking will sort me out some, like, fucking, hang on, I'll move my head out the way. The fucking, like, there's a pile up here that you'll be able to see there, like fucking on the shelves. There's like 3 piles at the top. Those are like all like classic blaxploitation movies that someone just gave to me. I've got an amazing blaxploitation collection of like really fucking niche ones over there. Like,
sick.
So I'm getting hold of them before people start, what should we call it, realizing there's value in them. Aye. But yeah, it's been a great convo. I should probably leave you to get back to your flipping mum's birthday in France, to be honest. But hey, flipping hell, we got a dog there. We got a dog and a cat on this podcast. So if you're not watching the YouTube, you are missing out. I appreciate all my subscribers, but we got it popping over on the YouTube. But yeah, so I'll wrap it up there. So I'll first of all, we're telling people, let them know when they can go and see Sounds Like in Edinburgh.
Between the 21st and the 25th of August. And if not, it'll be out on Vimeo shortly after and on YouTube by Christmas.
Yeah. And if you go to the Sounds Like channel, you can see all the previous live shows, which are dropping at the minute. Yeah. And
100%. So there's 26 episodes that were done on Zoom, about 10 episodes that have been done live. It's all there.
Cool. Yeah. And socials, where can people hit you up?
At Body Bagnall and everything. At Body Bagnall.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure. This has been the KSC Podcast. Peace.